Hello everyone, and welcome to another video edition of Chaotic Fringe. Just a few moments ago I came back from doing my civic and patriotic duty, and I voted in the 2012 election. And I wanted to kind of give an overview of what I experienced for this election. We actually had an election in August, a primary election, so we went for the primary and pretty much went into the general is a very short time frame that we had on it, and to say that it was a little different would be an understatement. First, I got up pretty early to go vote. The voting opened at 6 o'clock, and around 6:30 I was around the house doing things, and I said I might as well just go ahead and vote now. So I left around, like I said, around 6:30. It took me about 20 minutes to walk to the school where the voting takes place. And unlike when I went before, there were not a lot of signs saying this was the voting place. Before, in August, there were like tons of signs and people directing you to places. This time that was not there. There wasn't until I actually got onto the school grounds that I started seeing some signs, some red poll signs that actually took me to where the polling place was. I walk in to the auditorium, and there were about maybe 20 people either voting or in the process of voting. And there were about, at first I thought about 20 poll workers that were there, but it turns out it was a mix of poll workers and observers, political observers that were there. The political observers are going to be an important part later in the story, actually. So I go up, and it was very quick because the line was really not that long, like 2 people. So I go up, I hand, I tell her my name, what my name is, and so she looks it up on her sheet, and so she wants to see ID. So I pull out my voter ID card, and then she wants to see a picture ID, which I thought was a little odd because of the last time I was there. Again, this was August. All I had to do was show my voter ID. So I show my picture ID, but my picture ID has my old address on it. So then she wants something that has my new address on it. So the only thing that lucked me out on this was that I had just gotten paid on Friday, so my pay stub was still in my backpack, so I was able to pull out the envelope that had my address showing through the window. So I show this to her. Now the thing that kind of disturbed me about this was after showing it to her, she looks at it, she sees my address on there, she's looking at it, she's seeing that it's the same address, and she sees the envelope is open, and then she pulls the stub out. I'm thinking, why are you pulling the stub out? You don't need to see how much I make. You just wanted my address, and that's what I'm complying with. So I was a little bit put off by that. So we started off not on a good foot. So after that, she hands that stuff back to me, and okay, I'm ready to get my ballot and go vote. And she says, "Oh, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have taken your stuff like that." And I thought she was apologizing. No, she wasn't apologizing. Beside my name said provisional ballot. And as I'm looking at this sheet that says provisional ballot, now this is like one sheet, maybe there's like 20, 25 names that are on there, and of the 20 or 25 names, I would say 4 of the names that are on that one sheet with my name on it says provisional ballot. Now this is in alphabetical order, so these are just names that show that these people need provisional ballots, and I'm going, I don't understand why we need a provisional ballot. I even asked her why, and she says, I don't know, you need to go to the provisional ballot line. So she pointed me over to the provisional ballot line. So okay, so I go over to the provisional ballot, and they said, why are you here? And it's like, this is not a big auditorium, so they could easily communicate with one another. But she said, I told her I was told I needed a provisional ballot. So she gives me this form I have to fill out for the provisional ballot that basically states your name, address, stuff like that. Typical thing. So I go off, I fill that out, I bring that back, and as I'm bringing it back, this man stops me and says, Okay, let me look at your thing, make sure it's filled out correctly. So he looks at it, and he says, oh, you need to put your Social Security number down. So I put in my Social Security number. I now go back to the desk for the provisional ballot, hand that sheet to the person. They tear off a sheet, said, this is your receipt, you need to keep this. Okay, so I put that in, and then he says, here is your ballot, your provisional ballot, fill it out, and then you need to bring it back here. Okay, now already there's like bells going off in my head, but I've noticed a couple of things that are rather interesting. There was a couple in front of me that also got a provisional ballot. Okay, so there's a couple in front of me, so that's two people that also got a provisional ballot. When I was filling out the provisional ballot, there was one person I saw who came up into the line who also needed a provisional ballot, so she got a provisional ballot. So now it's three people. After I had filled out my form, after I had actually filled out my ballot, and I'm kind of looking around all that stuff, I noticed that there were three people, so these were people that were voting, that also turned in their provisional ballots. So, let's do the numbers here. There was a couple, there was one woman that came in, and then there were three other people that turned in provisional ballots. So that's, and then including myself, that's 7. So 7 people in the 20 minutes that I was there filled out provisional ballots. Now I would say maybe 20 people showed up throughout the whole time I was there. So roughly 1/3 of the people had to do provisional ballots. Now, here's the part that you're going to find a little interesting, and some people may say that this is a little paranoid, but I counted it myself. Of the people that had that did the provisional ballots, they were all black and Hispanic. Yeah, all black and Hispanic. I saw white people that came in that were voting. None of them had provisional ballots. The people that I saw that were actually filling out their forms and were turning them in, most of the people were putting them in the regular voting. We're putting them in the regular voting device. Now, yes, were there blacks and Hispanics that were also putting them into the machine? Yes, there were. So, like I said, I am not saying that there was a weird racial thing going on, because, well, you know, there were people that were putting the ballots, that were actually putting the ballots in the vote. But it seems kind of strange that looking at the provisional ballot list that I saw, or the list that I saw, and then seeing just in the time frame I was there how many people had to do provisional ballots, and all of them were black and Hispanic, draw your own conclusions. I guess we'll just leave it at that. So, now here's the fun thing about the provisional ballot that I found out after I filled it out. So I fill out the ballot. I give it to the guy for the provisional ballot, and he says, oh, well, you must be filling out this. He said, words to the effect of, oh, you must be filling out this ballot because your address didn't match. No, that I didn't have a voter ID card. I'm sorry, that I didn't have a voter ID card. I said, no, I do have a voter ID card. I pulled out the voter ID card and showed it to the guy. And he's like, huh, well, I'm not really sure why you have a provisional ballot. And so now there's this discussion as to why I have a provisional ballot. And the thing that they can assume, that they assumed is why I had a provisional ballot was I had requested an early ballot. And I didn't turn the early ballot in. I didn't have time to, there were lots of things going on. I didn't have time to turn it in. So I figured I'd go vote. So for me doing that, I was on a provisional ballot list. That's their explanation as to what happened. Now, the only thing that I found strange about that was in August when I voted, same thing. I had requested an early ballot. I didn't fill out the early ballot. I went to go vote. No provisional ballot. Now, this time I go to vote, provisional ballot. So I feel now, and then there's like one other step to this that just riled me to no end. So I was told by this person, after doing the verifying, yes, I do need a provisional ballot, I was to put it into this bin, and he gave me another receipt. And what I was supposed to do is that after the election, so starting tomorrow, I have 5 days to call in to verify that my vote is counted. And I'm sorry, let me rephrase it, because that sounds kind of benign. I have to call in to verify that, yes, I went, pretty much I got to call in to verify, yes, that I voted, and that I voted provisional ballot, so they can count the provisional ballot. If I don't call in within 5 days, they don't count it. So essentially what I have to do now that I voted, I have to wait, and then I wait till tomorrow, and then I have 5 days to where I have to call again somebody and tell them, yes, I actually did a provisional ballot, and you need to count my vote. Now think about that. Think about this process. How many people are actually going to want to go through a process like that? That is insane. Now, as I was leaving, and believe me, I was pretty steamed. As I'm leaving, that's when this person comes up to me and asks me and tells me that she's not a poll worker, but she's a poll observer, and asked me why I had a provisional ballot. Why did they say I had a provisional ballot? So I gave her all of my information. I told her the reason why. I couldn't understand why. This is what they told me that I needed to do. And she wanted my information. So I'm not sure whether I'm going to get on some weird database or whether they're actually going to do this as some sort of contested ballot. I'm not sure what's going to happen. So the end result today was that I went to vote, to do my civic duty and vote, and my vote was suppressed. All this talk all over the country about voter suppression and people thinking maybe it's not going to happen, maybe that it is some sort of something that happens to those other people. No, voter suppression, I found out, kick in the teeth, is very real. And I'm not incredibly happy about it because, like I said, August, not a problem voting. Went in, voted, happy as can be. This time, it was not a DMV. This was not like going to the DMV. This was worse, considering all the things that had to be done just to vote. And then it's like, oh, now you need to call back to make sure that you verify that your vote can be counted or your vote won't be counted. And judging by the amount of people that I saw just on a sheet of paper and in the room, just as a random sample, there's going to be a lot of people that are going to be making a lot of phone calls to get their provisional ballots cleared. That's if they call. And if it's actually going to do anything. Because now you're going to have an election where a lot of provisional ballots are going to be put on hold, we assume. A person's going to be elected to. I'm not so much concerned about the presidential race, because of the Electoral College, but I'm thinking of Senate races, thinking of House of Representative races that are going to be very close. That there could be hundreds, if not thousands, of provisional ballots sitting there that could tip the tide one way or the other, and a lot of them are probably going to get thrown away because the people forget to call back in 5 days. But that's our democracy. That's what we've set up. And wow, ain't I proud. So, I did my civic duty. I voted. Hopefully my vote will be counted. We'll just have to see when I make that call, and hopefully it will be. But that was my voting day. Rather interesting. So this is Reg Mizell with Chaotic Fringe, and I will talk to you again.